Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 57 of the podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Heather Kubiak about copyright law, and she is a copyright lawyer and who I would highly recommend contacting if you ever have a copyright issue, if someone's ever threatening you or you're ever having any kind of problem with that. So, be looking forward to this episode and learning more about the more legal side of copyright and quilting. So what am I working on today? I am actually cutting down some half square triangles because I've made two versions of a quilt and I've just decided that I need to make a third version of a quilt. And this is a little bit of a secret sewing project, so I can't show you what I'm working on, but I have a whole lot of half square triangles to cut down, so I can be working on this while I'm sharing the introduction. And I don't know what it is about it, but for some reason, busy hands help me be able to speak more fluidly. So it's just one of those funny things. And just in case you're just listening to the audio, I wanted to let you know that we also have the podcast available in video, so you can see what I'm working on and this opposite side of the crafty cottage that you normally never get to see. This is the side of the cottage that I am facing whenever I'm shooting face-to-face videos. And it's not all that great, not all that pretty, but it works, and that's the point. You know, it's definitely efficient, even if it's not all that pretty. So so one big thing this week, we finished up our Prism Path baby quilt. Here's a picture of it. So our very last post went up, and so that is the end of that mini quilt along. And I hope that you really enjoyed that process. And please know that you can join in anytime and you can make that beautiful rainbow baby quilt anytime. And all you need is a copy of the book, Explore Walking Foot Quilting with Leah Day, and you can join in and make that too. And so the videos will remain online forever. They're all up on leahday.com, so really easy to find. Just search Prism Path or leahday.com/Prism Path and you'll be able to find them. So another tutorial that went up this week was how to quilt crazy grid. So if you're looking for a really simple design that can go into your quilt and you don't have to worry about the lines being evenly spaced or anything like that, then you definitely want to give this one a try. And all of these designs I have filmed in walking foot quilting, but I'm starting to think maybe I need to add a little segment with free motion quilting or long arm quilting. So if you'd like to start seeing maybe an additional segment to these videos and, you know, kind of a cross comparison of the different types of quilting, let me know. Because at this point, I've uploaded up to the 20th design, so another week. But after this stage, you know, I could film a little bit more and add a little bit more to them. And I'm always interested to hear what you want, what you're looking for. So let me know. Now, one thing you might be wondering about is what is up with this hat? So I made this hat for the Kentucky Derby party that I went to. And it's basically just a $3 hat from Walmart. And then I bought about $25 worth of fake flowers and hot glue and a little bit of stitching to secure the brim back. And that's it. And I gotta say, this makes me happy. It makes me happy to wear it. It makes me feel pretty. And I have found, let's see here, Friday, I wasn't feeling like combing my hair. And, you know, this is just not one of those days. You know, I just kind of pulled it up in a ponytail and just said, whatever. And so whenever I'm going out, like Josh and I were going to go to lunch, you know, I really like to stop and do my hair, but I really didn't feel like it. So I just stuck the hat on my head and went. I mean, my outfit was not coordinating. I mean, I was like in jeans and a t-shirt and a crazy big hat. But I got so many compliments. I mean, people were like, you know, oh my gosh, that's such a pretty hat. And not just women. I mean, men were complimenting my hat. So that just made me feel really happy. And it also made me feel pretty. And I really think that this is important. And it's something that's been bugging me a lot lately, is I feel like there's a lot of ugly in the world and it only seems to be getting uglier. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just my neck of the woods. I don't know. But I feel like it's kind of going to maybe be my thing to try and be pretty or just, you know, wear a silly hat and make people smile. I mean, it's as simple as that. So I really enjoyed that. And then today is Mother's Day and I'm doing this intro and I needed to cut these half square triangles down I didn't feel like going inside and doing hair and makeup in the whole 9 yards of that. I'm in my swimsuit because it's hot and I'm gonna go jump in the pool after I'm done with this. So it was like, why do all that effort just to go jump in the pool, basically. So I was like, all right, I'll just go stick my hat on. There we go. And I think that's perfectly fine. And I think this is taking a leaf out of women's books back in the day. We used to wear hats all the time. Number one, having a tan wasn't a popular thing. That actually was not a good thing to have a tan. You were kind of a higher class lady if your skin was really pale. So that was always what they were attempting to do. That's why women wore really big hats. And then it was also, I think, just a way of kind of keeping your hair clean, kind of pulling it up in braids or whatever. So for all of those reasons, I think we need to bring hats back. And I think we need to bring big, crazy, fun hats back. So if you'd like to see a hat tutorial, I think I'm just getting started. I think I would be very happy to make more hats. So it's really not that hard. I had a great time doing it. So if you'd like to see how to make a hat tutorial, let me know. And I will shoot a video on it and share you, teach you how. So that'll be a lot of fun. So this week, I've been thinking about the tutorials that are coming out now because we're in a transition period. We've just finished up with Prism Path, and now what's next? And you're probably wondering that, and I'm kind of wondering that too. So I've been bouncing around. I've had a few tutorials that had just, they were just kind of stuff that I knew was coming, and I finally just got them on the schedule. And one came out on Monday, and that is a design video for Margaret Lewin. So here is a picture of her quilt. It's called Sarah's Star, and it's for her granddaughter. And apparently Sarah is a princess in training. Super, super cute. So I shared a video just on the quilting design, just on how to plan your quilting design and know how to quilt it. Basically answering that question, how do we quilt it? So Sarah's Star is a quilt along that Margaret is hosting, and I just had a really good time with this. It was just answering that question of design, the process. I drew three different designs, not complete, but just gave you a lot of ideas. And then ultimately, the design that I liked the best was actually the simplest, which might surprise you. So make sure to check out that video. I'm going to link that up in the show notes, and I'll link up everything that I've mentioned here in this introduction in the show notes as well. So you can find all of it at leahday.com/episode 57. So come and check that out. Okay, so what else has been going on? Mally the Maker has been going well. I did not share an update on that last week because I was a little bit like, I don't know, I go through periods of feeling miffed with it, and I go through periods of feeling happy about it. I guess I'm in a happy phase again. Basically, I needed to rewrite a big giant chunk of the book, and so I ended up doing that last week. And what was interesting is I started getting back into the writing process, which I do upstairs at the kitchen table or standing at the bar. I use my iPad for that instead of my computer downstairs. It just felt really different, and I really enjoyed that. And so then today I had to go downstairs and start kind of suturing the new part and the old part together to make it work. This sounds bad, but trust me, it works. It works. And I'm going to read it 17 times, so I'll double and triple check it's okay. But when I went downstairs to start working on it, I was like, why don't I like working on it down here? And part of it's just being in the basement. I don't particularly like working in the basement because it's dark and it's kind of cold and, all of that kind of stuff. And I identified the problem. I can't really do much about it because I like to edit on my big screen. I have a computer with a really big screen downstairs. So part of it is I like that computer for editing so I can see the whole document kind of in a much bigger way. And then, I just need to figure out, okay, well, how do I make the things I don't like about working on that computer a little bit better? So it's a little bit of identify the problem. If you're having an issue with something, if you've gotten bogged down with a quilt and you can't seem to finish it, then you need to dig into why? What is the issue? What is the problem that has made this feel funky and made it no fun? And once you figure that out, you probably aren't going to be able to change much about it. But for me, at least, being able to identify, oh, okay, I'm feeling this way because I don't particularly like working on this computer and it's making it a little bit less fun in general. And that helps. It helps me acknowledge it. And then just to simply say, okay, I really enjoy the writing process and I want to get back to that as soon as possible. So how do I get back to the writing process? As I get done with the editing process. So yeah, this has definitely lit a fire in my pants to get the edits done. And at this stage, I kind of made this major change in the book, but it needed to happen. And then kind of looking forward, it's like, all right, well, how much more needs to really change in order to make that work? Really not much at all. Invented a new place in the book. That's okay. We can kind of really, dig into that more in a future book. So yeah, it's been good. And then today I did a lot of block research. This has been the interesting side of Mally the Maker that I really didn't expect. And that is, for one thing, the whole kind of obsession with treadle sewing machines thing, but then also a new desire to really learn more about traditional quilt blocks and to dig into them. And I'm not only designing the quilt in the book, the major quilt in the book, but also designing almost a sampler of different blocks that are mentioned as well, and these are kind of, I can't give away too much. I'm having to be a little careful at this point now. So yeah, I did a little bit of block research and work on that today, got things organized, and that feels great. And it's really making me want to piece. That's part of the reason why I'm doing all these half square triangles right now, is I just have this craving for piecing right now. And it's really good because I finally found a patchwork foot for my Eversewn Sparrow 20 that I really like, and we'll be putting those up on the website soon, in our quilt shop soon. And so that's been a process, because basically that machine doesn't come with a good patchwork foot. It comes with just your standard presser feet for sewing. It doesn't come with an actual 1/4 inch patchwork foot. So I've been in this process of going through all the catalogs, going through all the distributors, trying to find the feet that I like. And I'm sure you're probably wondering, okay, why don't I just go with Eversewn branded feet? I could, but I don't like them. And if I don't like a foot, I'm not going to use it. And if I don't like a foot, then it's not going to work for me. I'm very particular. I know what I like. So I dug through, found a new distributor even, and finally found the foot that I really like. And so now it's just a matter of place the order, get it in stock, write the sales page, all that good stuff. And so hopefully that will be coming up very, very soon. And part of, the process has been testing. And I love this because I have so many blocks now to piece and play with. And Dad's been playing too inside the house. I mentioned that last week in the podcast last week about quilt ownership, that Dad has been helping me design our quilt along for next year, and he's been doing a lot of playing there. And just a little follow-up on last week's podcast, I had a lot of people that were confused that I was talking about shared ownership as in like a long armer would steal your quilt and would own your quilt. And maybe I kind of encouraged that a little bit with the silly image of Dad and I playing tug of war with a quilt, which we had a lot of fun making that shot, by the way. But no, that's not what I was talking about. Mostly it was just give credit where credit is due. If someone works on your quilt, give them credit for it. Give them kudos. If someone is complimenting you on a quilting design and you did not do that quilting design, please just say, oh, that was done by Jane Doe. She's a long arm quilter in town. That's not that hard. But if it bugs you, and there were a lot of people that were clearly bugged by this whole idea, if it bugs you, there's a simple solution. Quilt your own quilts. It's really that easy. And I've kind of done a little bit to teach you how to do that. Maybe I need to do more videos. Sorry. It's just one of those funny things. I think I don't know, maybe that great quilting debate, a lot of people hadn't thought of it that way before. I'm not really sure, but definitely sparked some controversy, and that's a good thing. We don't all have to agree with one another. And it certainly made me think too, because I think sometimes sometimes this can go too far, and then you feel like, okay, I need to list the, the designer and the pattern maker and the fabric and the, long armor, and, all of this stuff kind of becomes pretty, it becomes a lot of details. But it's really kind of where I'm basing my opinion is what I'm seeing from quilt shows. And if quilt shows are asking for that information, then it's might be a good idea to keep up with it, just in case you decide to show your quilt. So that also kind of ties in just a little bit with today's podcast, also about copyright, what you can do and what you can't do with the pattern, and what protects you. And what's interesting, I'm a part of several different groups for pattern designers, and what I find that's really interesting is there can be a lot of negativity, about pattern design. I'll be frank. Once you figure out how quilting math works, it's not that difficult to rip off a pattern and go, okay, those are 2-inch squares, do the math and figure it out yourself. Now, when you go into a group and say, hey, what size finished square is that? That's really, really rude. Number one, it's basically telling the whole group that you know how to reverse engineer a quilt block, and that's not nice. But I feel like there's a lot of, there is a lot of anger that gets generated by quilt pattern designers, and, feeling like their patterns aren't respected or can be easily reverse engineered. And, there's two sides of that. One side of it is you can get really angry and upset, and that goes back into the whole ugly thing. Sorry, but I just don't think that we're very productive when we're feeling ugly. I don't think that that's the emotion that you really want to encourage. So, another way you can go with it is, okay, let's design something really unique that really can't be ripped off the same way. Or in the case of what I've done, add sewing machines to your shop. No one can copy a sewing machine. If you're selling the machine, then you're making that sale. And I have been feeling just a little bit not frustrated. Well, I guess frustrated is the right word. I've been feeling frustrated with myself that I waited so long to add machines to my quilt shop. It's almost like I just didn't believe that I could do that, when now in the last 2 weeks, I feel like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And I know I can really be good at it because I love sewing and I love quilting, and I know that I can answer these questions that I'm already receiving, and that feels amazing. So I almost feel like quilt pattern design is great, but it is very, it is the easiest thing to do. It is the easiest way to get into being a professional quilter, which means it's the biggest group of people. And, maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe you need to think bigger. One of my favorite quotes from a movie is Inception. And there's an actor, they're kind of in a dream, and they basically anything that they dream of, they can manifest in this world. And this one guy has a gun and he's struggling to shoot somebody, and then another guy pulls out an even bigger gun and says, "You must learn to dream bigger." I love that. So yeah, I'm honestly feeling like, when I see a lot of negativity on quilt pattern designers, I guess my advice is to think bigger and look at things that, hey, everybody pretty much can design a Sol 2 star block. And yes, once a quilter is high enough level to know how to reverse engineer that, they probably can. So what can you do that can't be reverse engineered? And that's my encouragement on that side. And I hope that doesn't hurt any feelings. It's just simply my own perspective that's changed in the last month or so. And certainly after going to VDTA and seeing all these men selling machines that don't know how to use them. Not really. They know how to fix them, but they don't know how to use them. And I got an interesting email today from someone named Diane. She's actually local. She's taken a class with me. And she said that she took her machine in to get fixed, and she forgot and left her free motion quilting foot, her darning foot, on the machine, and it had been one that she modified per my instructions. And I actually just recently did an update video on this for the Average Sewn Sparrow 20, and she sent me an email, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so ironic. You know, I just done an update video on this. And so apparently the guy that was fixing the machine came out and was like, what did you do to your foot? You know, like, why have you done this to it? And why isn't it hopping anymore? And she was like, well, Leah Day told me to do it that way. Which I love that. You know, if you need an excuse, just say Leah Day told you to, and that's fine. So he, questioned her further and was basically like, well, that won't work. Well, clearly it is working. If she's been free motion quilting for a while and has been successful at it, then clearly it does work. So I just found that funny, and I love those little stories because, sometimes I have to question whether a dealer giving advice like that actually knows what he's talking about. He knows how to fix the machine, but does he actually know? If I handed him a quilt, would he be able to free motion quilt stippling over the surface? And I don't want to offend anybody, but come on, don't say something's not going to work unless you know for sure that it's not going to work. I guess that's really my point. So also leading into the whole pattern design thing, I also launched a new pattern, and I actually have it hanging right here. So this is Eternal Love, and this is the new pattern that we launched last week. And yes, thank you so much for all of the super sweet comments and emails that we received. We are going to do a quilt along for this quilt, and I've actually piled up. I've already got 2 videos shot, and that's going to start in June. So I already started shooting the videos even last week and planning that out, and talked to Josh about it, how many videos we should do. And I was thinking 6 and he was thinking 4. So let me know how long you'd like the quilt along to be. If you'd like to get the quilt, start to finish done in 1 month, or you want to go a little longer and go into July, let me know what you're thinking. And then this week we have the kits. So you can find a kit to make Eternal Love at leahday.com/lovekit. And that's going to come with all the fabrics that you need, plus your fusible web. Now, it does not come with the pattern, so if you're just seeing this week, then you'll need both the pattern and the kit if you want to follow along. And we don't have that many. This is kind of my first time launching a kit and a pattern all at the same time. So just experimenting. So we're going to see how it goes. And so I only have about 40 kits or so. So if they sell out, they sell out. We might get more fabric in. We might not. We'll see. It's one of those things. It's kind of an experiment just to see how things go. And you don't know how things are going to work out until you try. And fabric, it's a pretty big investment. So it was kind of like, okay, let's see how many kits we can cut from 1 bolt of fabric each. And unfortunately, I miscut an entire bolt of fabric. I know, that is awful. It certainly, those kits almost didn't happen. I'll put it that way. It was just a mistake that I had made in calculations, and this did not affect the pattern. So please don't worry about anything with that. I caught this mistake before the pattern went out. But it was just it was one of those situations where I wrote something down, and then that piece of paper got lost, and then I quickly calculated again, and then that piece of paper was the one that got saved. Turns out I had the wrong background size listed, said it needed a 1/2 yard. Really needed 2/3 of a yard because the finished quilt, like 1/2 yard is 18 inches. Well, the quilt finishes at 20, so that doesn't work. That's bad math, Leah. Yeah. So that was not any fun. So I have 15 yards worth of 1/2 yard cuts of fabric. So basically I have another quilt pattern I'm going to be designing with that background fabric because we're going to need to kit that too. So it was just one of those things. It's a learning experience. Everything is always a learning experience. Even I don't know it all. And I make mistakes. That one was not a lot of fun. And Dad and I caught it. And I just, he was asking me a question about it, and I was just like, I need to walk away. Just let me walk away. I'll come back when I don't want to scream at myself, because that is a pretty expensive mistake, and the kits I would say probably wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been able to get in touch with Island Boutique and have 2 more bolts shipped. I was really lucky that they had 2 bolts in stock and ready, so that was really lucky. And that's just one of those things. This is like the whole behind the scenes thing for pattern design, is working with a manufacturer that you trust that can work with you. And I really love working with Island Boutique for that reason, because, this kind of thing has happened before. Of course, sometimes they don't have the fabric in stock. Sometimes it's like, sorry, 6-month wait, that kind of thing. And that's part of the reason why we don't do a lot of fabric, is because of those long wait periods. And it's scary to make that investment and have 7 bolts of fabric, but you can't kit anything because you're missing 1 color for 6 months. I'm not kidding. That's what can happen. And it's, that's a lot of stuff to be setting on the shelf, and it can't go anywhere. You can't do anything with it. You're stuck for that length of time. That might be something that you haven't even thought about with quilting, but that's a lot of the state for quilt shops. If you ever look into the back room of a quilt shop, why they have bolts and bolts and bolts, stacked everywhere. A lot of it is they're waiting on a specific color or a specific print to come in, and that stock has to sit there until it does, So it's one of those things. This is a crazy complicated business. It really is. But, I really wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I was listening to a podcast episode for The Creative Pen, and it was about play and, just about incorporating play in your life. And one thing I've been doing the last several weekends has been scrubbing on my treadle Singer bass. And I've been really enjoying getting outside. I've been really enjoying the sunshine and beautiful weather, and the mosquitoes aren't out yet. So that's been nice too. So all of that's been great. And I've been feeling so much happier because I'm getting outside and getting the sunshine too. So I was thinking about, okay, well, what was play to me when I was a kid? Well, it was doing a craft project. It was making something. I was the kid that I was sewing when I was really little, and I taught myself to crochet, and I taught myself how to knit. And I think some of my creative play is learning something new and challenging myself too. It's not always pretty. It's not always like really fun. Sometimes it does actually feel really challenging. But that's also play for me. So I'm trying to figure out ways I'm incorporating that more, other than just wearing big silly hats. Although I do think that this is only the beginning. I really think that big silly hats need to be, they need to come back in fashion. They really do. And I'm thinking, big giant sunflowers, and maybe even not like flowers. Maybe putting weird stuff on a hat would be cool too. I don't know. I'm just getting started with that idea. So yeah, it's been a good week. It's been a really, really good week. I've had a great time. I'm excited about the summer. James is graduating in the next 2 weeks to go up to middle school. So that's going to be fun. And then he's going to be out of school too. So we're going to try hanging out and doing our summer routine and kind of getting on a more of a schedule with him and transitioning into that, because I don't know about you, but it really, having an extra body in the house really can affect things and change things. So we're going to also be adjusting to that too. So that's it for the updates around the house. Remember, you can find all of the tutorials that I mentioned in this introduction, as well as the Eternal Love quilt pattern and the Love kit. Come and find all of that and more at leahday.com. And now here's the podcast with Heather Kubiak, all about copyright and quilting. Hello, my quilting friends. Leah Day here with Heather Kubiak. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you, Leah.
So a little introduction. Heather practices law in Houston, Texas. She focuses her practice on advising clients and mediating disputes. She is a frequent speaker on intellectual property law, and she is an avid quilter and sewer. So this is so great. We already talked to Elizabeth Townsend Guard about copyright a few weeks ago, and I found that conversation just really fascinating. And I love the opportunity to talk to you as well, because I really feel like there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of fear when it comes to copyright and quilting, and that really upsets me. So I'm hoping that we can talk together and kind of sort a lot of this stuff out and hopefully make it easier for quilters to understand on all the different levels, whether they're a hobbyist or they're a professional designer, wherever they they land. So
Yes, I look forward to that.
yeah. So let's just start out first. Let's say a hobby quilter, someone that's just making quilts for themselves, for their family. They're giving quilts away. They're just enjoying the whole process. What's something that they really need to understand as far as buying patterns, using patterns, maybe sharing a pattern or a photo of a pattern that they bought on their blog? Something like that.
Nothing in copyright is straightforward or easy, so I'll say that, Leah. And it's probably the murkiest area of any of the law, unfortunately. So I think it's really important that there's nothing hard and fast. But I will say that the law kind of tries to take two competing interests at play. One is the free exchange of ideas, and the second is to protect people so that they feel like investing their time. If you're a hobbyist, the thing that you should focus on most is if you buy a pattern, don't give it away, don't copy it. Somebody worked really hard to make that pattern, and they should either get permission, written permission from the person who made the pattern, or have the friend buy their own pattern. If, however, you bought a pattern like I do sometimes, and I buy hundreds of patterns and I only have time to make 2 or 3, if you've never used the pattern, then the first sale doctrine allows you to give that pattern away, and that's no problem at all. But don't retain a copy. It's just not the right thing to do.
Okay, so let's say I bought a pattern, never used it, still brand new in the package, in the envelope, all that good and good stuff. So I could give that away to someone, and that's perfectly fine.
You could give it away. You could sell it.
I could sell.
That is perfect.
Okay, that's interesting. And I think that, the whole thing about copying is very logical. I think everyone pretty much learns this. And is that really the only thing that a quilter needs to worry about? Let's say she makes a quilt. Let's just say Jane Doe. Jane Doe makes the quilt, and she lives in Kentucky, and she posts a picture of it on her blog, Jane Doe's quilting blog. And she posts a picture of her quilt. She does not link to the pattern. She does not mention the pattern designer, but for some reason, because it's the internet, the quilt pattern designer finds out about it and comes and yells at her. What is something that Jane Doe from Kentucky can do with that?
Well, first, if you're going to use someone's pattern to make a quilt, it's just, again, the nice and right thing to do to give credit to the pattern designer. And I think so many times, if you just do that, you'll cut down on misunderstandings. However, having said that, I don't think that giving credit to the pattern maker is required when posting a photograph of your copy on your own blog. I think that falls under what we call an exception, fair use. But it is an exception to copyright law, and I'm all about let's all be friends. Every time you have a chance to reach out to another quilter and say, I love your pattern so much, look at this great quilt I made, I'm posting it on my blog, feel free to link back. You've made a friend, you've made a connection, we've all become closer, and you cut down on hurt feelings. And lawsuits and legal disputes are almost always about miscommunication or hurt feelings.
Yeah, completely. Now, what happens if you send that email and the person comes back? This is a concern. I have heard from quilters that they say, well, I just went and sent her an email and then she just yelled at me. And now it's all icky. Now I hate the quilt. Now I want to go burn it because I hate everything about it because she just hurt my feelings. Like, what do you do then? And then now you got to delete that blog post because someone's being nasty. I mean, it's, do you see how the rabbit hole can kind of start to dig deep and dig deeper? It's really a worry.
I've not ever experienced someone doing that. I have heard that people have done that. I think in some part it's in the way you make the ask or the offer. And I think it's important to say, don't ask. You're not asking. You're not asking. You're saying, hey, I made your quilt. You may even say under the fair use doctrine, I'm posting it on my blog. Love for you to be a part of it. And then if they come back and say, I don't want to be a part of it, oh, well, that's too bad. I'm really sorry. But let's just have some thick skin, and let's not let the fear that somebody is going to be small-minded and small-worlded stop us from reaching out to one another.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. That really does. And I like that idea of just saying, well, we're going to pull on our big girl panties and just, say, hey, I'm not asking for your permission to post this. I'm just telling you that I just shared this and it's turned out beautiful and I love your work. I mean, that's as simple as it gets.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that pretty much like kind of clears up the hobbyist kind of angle, but really the real murky stuff I find gets into when we get into pattern design, when a person kind of starts to transition into designing their own stuff, into playing around with making a living with it and selling things. So with quilting, this is tricky because we've got a huge, basically, community pool of open domain, public domain blocks and things like that. So, what's something that a designer needs to understand about all this plethora of blocks that are available? And then someone, that might come along and say, oh, you stole my block. What's that about?
Well, I don't, if you're going to do this for a living, I think to do it most professionally is the best way. When you design a new quilt and you're basing it off something in the public domain, and let me just say the hard and fast rule is any block before 1929 is undeniably in the public domain.
Okay.
There's a more complicated formula for when copyrights have moved into the public domain for anything after, I'm sorry, I said 1929. I think it's 1923. Here, I should know that. But I mean, most of our blocks, I mean, just look at the Amish blocks. Almost all of the Amish blocks, they're in the public domain. So if you're going to design based off something in the public domain, make a note of it. So that, and maybe even note where you got access to the public domain block. That way you're prepared, because there are people that don't understand copyright and that try to use it as a sword. Some people using it as a sword and a shield, which is really obnoxious. But keep track of where you got your inspiration and how you created that block. And it doesn't have to be fancy. Just maybe a notebook or a computer entry, some way of keeping track of it that is that you can pull later.
Mm-hmm.
But anything you could get from the public domain, I mean, just remember that if you pull it from the public domain, you're going to have a hard time getting your own copyright protection on it as well. So that goes both ways.
But that would be the block, not the actual written pattern. So the block can't be copyrighted because it's public domain, but your written pattern, your words, your expression of that pattern, your expression, the size of the block, the size of the star, whatever you piece together, that's copyrightable, correct?
Can be. There's a big debate about that, and it has not really been tested. And I will give you two examples. Number one, anything that is considered a useful object, which includes fashion. So clothing patterns are not copyrightable.
Wow.
And there have been so many lobbying efforts by the fashion industry to get clothing patterns copyrighted and fall under copyright rules, but they have been unsuccessful to date. I have a question as to whether quilt patterns can even be copyrighted.
Wow.
So now I will tell you that your drawn diagrams and the way your words look on the page, yes. But we also need to remember that not only are useful items not copyrightable, and let's face it, we would be facing a jury of the general public. What do they think about quilts? They think they're blankets. They think they're useful objects. So you've got that one issue. Another issue is that patent law is the law that covers intellectual property dealing with ideas. Techniques, therefore. If I have a technique for sewing a Y-seam, for example, or putting together a particular way of putting together a block, you can patent that, but you cannot copyright it. So here's an example I like to give. I really admire Sue Nichols, and I've taken a number of classes from Sue Nichols. I've taken a number of classes from you, Leah. And I can go to your class, and I can take your written materials, and I can read them, and I can attend that class. And then I can go, and I can write my own instructional based on the techniques. And I mean down to the stitch length, everything. And I can take it from you. And I can go teach it at a class, and I can teach it as my own. Now, you're kind of a jerk if you don't give credit to someone's hard work in figuring out a technique. But unless your instructor has a design patent or a utility patent or a process patent, there's nothing that stops me from going and teaching that method. Nothing. So I think there is a really huge misunderstanding where people try to protect techniques through copyright when it is absolutely not copyrightable.
Yeah, and describe the process of getting a method patent. I mean, doesn't that have to be a unique thing? I once worked with Josh's aunt to look into possibly patenting a way of making bed sheets. We were kind of playing around with an idea, and it turned out it was already patented, or the expression was already out there, and so it wasn't unique enough that we could even attempt the patent. So tell me about that.
Let me go back and contrast it with copyright.
Okay.
Copyright just takes a tiny little bit of creative juice to get a copyright. That's it, just a tiny little bit. Patents, on the other hand, they have to be new, useful, and non-obvious. There is a strict, what we call a prosecution method that goes through a governmental entity where you have an examiner assigned to you. You must have a lawyer. I mean, I suppose there are people that could get a patent on their own, but you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars to file and get a patent, and it's not easy. Patents don't make sense to small designers. Patents make sense to large companies that are trying to have new and useful things on rotary cutters or sewing machines or rulers or a number of things like that. But you better be sure you're going to make a lot of money before you invest in trying to get a patent, and it's not easy.
Yeah, tens of thousands of dollars. I can't think of a single thing that I've created that has done that for me. So, it's kind of like that shoots the whole thing out the window right there. And then knowing, I've seen bullying. I've seen the aggressive stuff that can happen online, and the quilters that, so-and-so took my method, or so-and-so is ripping off my technique. And I'm always kept that in mind. Techniques aren't copyrightable. This can be taken, this can be used, this can be taught again. And so my mentality always when I teach is, I want this going out in the world. That's why I teach. How can we encourage quilters to have this mentality that no one's taking anything from you, you're sharing it? And do you help people mediate with this?
I do. I've got several groups of people, and unfortunately, I've been contacted by two different former partners of one another, because that's where you really see a lot of confusion and heartache over that. But I'll give you the example of my good friend, Caroline Fairbanks Critchfield. She has the blog SewCanShe.com. Everything Caroline does, she gives away. She's incredibly inventive. She's just incredibly inventive. She comes up with so many things, but she has figured out that it makes her more money to share freely through her advertising and her clicking and her affiliate links and those kinds of things. And she doesn't want to hassle with trying to protect. And in fact, she wants to give away what she has. And I think, Leah, this goes back to the way we're raised to some extent and how much confidence we have in ourselves. Mm-hmm. But also, if I could say one thing to convince people to give away their stuff in this day and age, in the world of social media, you have to give away your ideas or no one is going to find you. And having someone post about your ideas, especially if they're giving you credit for doing so, only makes the pot bigger. We don't have a finite pot. This is all just, it's a good industry, it's fun, and it was intended to build community. So that's my 2 cents. And when I teach this class, I just encourage people, let's not be the copyright police. Let's share.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And when we say share, that means teach it and sell it. That means make that pattern and sell it. But also understand, you may see it somewhere else. You may see someone else teaching that too. But I sometimes feel like this gets excessive because there is such a thing as spontaneous discovery or mutual discovery, where we all have fabric, we all have sewing machines, we all have feet, we all have these same tools. So the same person, like, or two different people across the world can come up with the exact same idea on the same day, and that's not in any way infringement. No one's ripped you off, no one's taken anything from you. It's just a simple fact that we're all creative beings and we're all making things. And that's where I come, like, that's always what I come back to is I would never be so egotistical as to think someone else has stolen from me or taken from me. She's probably come up with that all by herself. And even if she hasn't, I taught that so she could. You know what I mean? So that's where I am. That's my mentality. That's how I was raised. I was always a sharer. That's just who I am. But if somebody doesn't understand that and isn't tapped into that mentality, it can be very surprising. So you are an avid quilter and also a copyright lawyer. So combining those two things, has there anything really surprised you as you got into quilting, as you also understand copyright law too?
I'm very surprised at the amount of misinformation. And at the end of my class, I always give a quiz because there's some real misinformation. And one is, and I think I may have perpetuated it, so I want to be clear, giving attribution to someone's copyright is not enough to absolve you of copyright violation. It is not the same thing. You must have permission to use it if it's going to be a copyright violation. I think also copyright violation is a crime. If you make over 10 copies, so let's say I bought one of your patterns, Leah, and I don't talk to you about it, and I say, oh, you know what? My guild is going to make this pattern for charity. And let's say we make 10 quilts based on your pattern. Well, let's say we make 11 because we have a license to make one. And we make 11, or let's say I copy the pattern and I hand it out to my guild and we all go on our merry way and we make these quilts and we give those quilts away. That is a felony.
Wow.
It is a felony. So, I mean, I think that people that lie to themselves and they think, well, I'm giving it for free. It's okay if I copy it and give it to my friends. That is unlawful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely. And, you know, when you're in a group setting, you know, and it's kind of like the whole, we're all chickens here, you know, we're all friends, we're all pals. That's where it can get tricky because, you know, it feels very insular and we want to share and we want to help out Sue who might not have that much money, or Mary who's having trouble with her car or whatever, you know, and there can be that mentality of let's just share it with the whole group. And I think that also comes back to contact the designer and ask. I mean, when people contact me and want a group discount, we always say yes and work something out for the whole group and make it reasonable because, you know, obviously it is buying 10 copies or buying 20 copies of the pattern. But I think if you ask nicely and preface it that way, at least I hope that designers will be smart enough to realize that that is an asset. That's a possibility to make some money. And not only that, but spread goodwill, spread good feelings with that entire group. You know, sometimes there's a little bit of cut your nose off to spite your face, you know, and that is really frustrating. So what's just a basic rule that that a designer should keep in mind while she's designing something? What's like kind of a checklist in the back of her mind just to keep in mind as she's making a new quilt?
Yes, first keep track of your inspiration and keep track of just notes. And again, they don't have to be extensive. And then when you do issue a pattern or something that's copyrighted, make it very clear, how do people contact you? What rights are you giving away and how can they contact you? A person that does a great job of defining her rights and the rights to her user's pattern is Annie Unrain from By Annie. I love making bags. I'm a huge fan of Annie. And she does a fantastic job. Her copyright notice is wonderful, and it makes it so easy to contact her, and she's so reasonable. But she works so hard for those. She has some very innovative techniques. And again, I can buy her pattern, and I can read through and teach myself those techniques, and I'm free to go teach them, but I'm why would I do that? I would just have people purchase her pattern. And then I guess the other thing I would say too is be aware of, separate and apart from copyright law, there's also the law of contracts and licensing that comes into play when you post your own content on social media. So Facebook, at least the last time I looked, which was the last time I taught this class back fall, but Facebook and also Pinterest. Pinterest is very interesting. If Leah, if you post a photograph of your quilt, of one of your quilts on Pinterest, which of course you want to do, someone is free to look at it and reverse engineer it and figure out how to do it and write their own pattern, because you have, by contract rights with Pinterest, you have given a worldwide royalty-free license for derivative works.
Wow.
So that's the other thing. I think people that they post their things on Pinterest, they post their things on Facebook. Of course they do. That's how you're going to sell your pattern. But someone who's sophisticated enough, who's been quilting long enough, who can look at a quilt and figure out how to make it on their own, they don't need someone else's measurements, is free to do so. So it's just another thing to kind of keep in mind.
So that would be if I posted it to Pinterest, not if somebody else posted it to Pinterest? That's interesting.
That's correct. So if you post on your own website, and by the way, all rights are reserved unless you give them away. So let's say, Leah, you post a photograph of your quilt on your website and somebody else comes by and pins it. And they put it up on, then no, you haven't given away your rights. Although I would argue that if you make your images pinnable, then you have kind of given permission. I think there's a good argument to be made that you've given permission for people to pin them and such. So be falling under that.
Yeah, this is really surprising because that's really interesting, because you can insert code into your website to stop people from being able to pin. So this kind of explains the whole kerfuffle a few years ago. I mean, I didn't get on Pinterest until pretty late, but I can remember there being a lot of people angry, like, oh my gosh, how dare you pin my stuff? And that kind of thing got started, and I was like, I don't even know what this Pinterest thing is. You know, it was like way over my head. And so now I understand. Okay, so let's say one of my goddess quilts, I pin my goddess quilts. I want people to see them. I want people to enjoy them. Okay, so then they take that image. They can then copy it. They can make a derivative work. They could put that on anywhere. They could put that up to Spoonflower, and that would be okay.
Yes, they can't take your actual image. The actual image itself is also copyrightable, but they can make a derivative work of it. Okay,
so they could draw it in Illustrator, make it their own, and then put it up. I mean, I just find this fascinating because it's like, I mean, there's that fear, like, oh my gosh, you know, now I'm so afraid somebody's going to take something. But then there's this other piece of me that's going, who's going to do that? You know, I mean, really, who's going to do that? Or if they did, you know, hey, how does that really hurt me? Does it really hurt me even? You know, I think there's always more than one way of thinking about all of this.
You know what hurts is when someone takes your pattern and mass produces it in China. And those are the kind of instances that make sense to litigate. It does not make sense to me to skewer your fans and to go after them. I mean, it's very diva-ish. I mean, I don't understand it.
Yeah, completely. I'm in the same situation. And, you know, there are situations of bullying. It happens. It happened to me recently. It wasn't very pleasant. Basically got a nasty email, someone saying that I took something of theirs. You know, long story short, I got in touch with Elizabeth and just say, hey, can you give me some advice? And she sent me your way. And it was just so nice to have someone to talk to and just say, hey, this is what happened. And, you know, this is so icky and feels awful. And I hate someone telling me that I've done something wrong. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's like no one likes to be told that they've just messed up. And that was so helpful. So is that something that quilters can do and just you know, find advice from you to to double check themselves. Hey, am I doing something right or am I doing something wrong? And what should I do in this situation?
I'm happy to serve as a resource to some extent, but I do this for a living, and I only charge for my time. I charge $300 an hour, so I wouldn't want to be flooded with lots of people calling for ideas. But I also do like to give I'm happy to give advice, and like I said, one of the ways I do make a living is by mediating disputes, because I'm all about trying to help people come to an agreement about how to handle whatever dispute they have, because a lot of times it is misunderstanding or hurt feelings that it can be fixed that way.
Yeah, certainly. And I certainly agree. I mean, you are a professional and you have gone to law school and you deserve to be paid for your time and energy. And I would definitely say, if there's a situation between quilters and it's gotten to the point of just plain nasty, I think that is worth the time and is worth the cash to get it cleared up and resolved, because moving forward, you got to be able to move forward with an open heart and a clear conscience more than anything else. So little rapid fire here towards the end. When do you need to ask permission to use something? Do you need to ask permission to use someone's ruler? Do you need to ask permission to use someone's fabric if they've printed home use only, if you're a designer? Do you need to ask permission to use something like a die, like a cutting die? Do you need to ask permission to use a sewing machine and put it in a photo and put it in a book? All of this gets so complicated.
It does, and those are I can't give you the answer to them in a vacuum. Sorry to say, I know that sounds very hedgy, lawyerly, but for the most part, the fair use doctrine covers a lot of those questions. If I purchase a ruler and I'm using that ruler, I think it's fair use for me to use the ruler. I think if I want to take a photo of that ruler or that sewing machine or something that I own, and I'm giving a tutorial or I'm explaining something for educational purposes, probably falls under fair use. And of course, my own photo of my sewing machine is my copyright. Now there may be some art on it that's otherwise copyrightable, but a sewing machine is a thing. So is a ruler. I mean, those are patentable items, not copyrightable items, for the most part.
Yeah. I think that really.
I think you need to just use your best judgment and I hope that by looking into what's protected and what's not protected, that people will err on the side of getting permission, or even if you don't get permission, just letting somebody know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're thinking about someone who, I sew on a Bernina, I would think Bernina would be really thrilled if I were taking pictures of my beloved Bernina while I was working, even though, and I don't think there is anything copyrightable on my Bernina. I mean, the logo is a trademark, so we haven't touched on trademarks, Leah, but that's a whole nother area of the law. And at Market and even at International Quilt Fest, I taught a class on introduction to patents, trademarks, copyrights. So this is complicated stuff.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it's not a lot of fun. It's not my favorite thing. I'll be completely honest, but you've certainly given me a lot to think about. And I hope that this has helped quilters feel better about copyright. Hopefully not felt worse about it. I think it's really very simple. Let's just respect one another, respect the work and time that goes into creating anything, but also feel the freedom to go grab a piece of graph paper, grab a pencil, and have fun designing too. That this is an amazing world, and we should be able to create. And as Elizabeth's podcast is, just want to quilt. We just want to quilt, right?
Just want to quilt. I would offer one other thing. If you've never read Austin Kleon's book called Steal Like an Artist, it's a one-sitting, very, very enjoyable read. And he is not a lawyer, but he has I think he's gotten it right on his common sense approach to when you should worry about stealing somebody else's work and when you shouldn't. So I would recommend that to anyone.
Okay, perfect. And so let everybody know where they can find you online and get to know you better, and also contact you if they need some advice on copyright law.
That sounds great. I'm at thekubiaklawfirm.com. I'm also on Facebook, Heather Kubiak, and you can click to both my sewing page and my law page. Quilt is desired, doing business as craft is desired, and the Kubiak Law Firm.
Excellent. And last question, what are you most looking forward to in the next 5 years? That's the question I ask everybody at the end.
I really would like to get after my long arm. I bought a long arm at festival and haven't turned it on yet. So I've done a lot of long arming in the past. I just didn't own one, but I'm really looking forward to honing that skill.
Well, that was more than 6 months ago. Good turn on that machine.
I lost both my parents last year. Just a lot of changes. So I haven't felt like sewing. So I'm just starting to get the twinge again. So I'm hoping I'll be getting back to it.
Excellent. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Leah. Look forward to seeing you later. Bye-bye.
So that's it for this episode. If you'd like to find more episodes of the Hello My Quilting Friends podcast, check it out at leahday.com/podcast. We have a player that will play through all of the episodes shared so far, so you can binge listen for hours on end. Until next time, let's go quilt.